Okay, welcome everybody. This is a conversation between myself, Naomi Engelkamp, and Francis Goodall. Firstly, let me welcome everyone that is listening in live, and also to those of you who are listening to the recording. We're so glad that you're here with us. I'm going to say a little bit about how the hour is going to flow. Francis and I are going to introduce ourselves and say a bit more about our professional background. We're also going to open up the circle to see if anyone wants to share a little bit about themselves, about what's brought you here, where you're calling from, what you're interested in terms of constellations, and maybe internal family systems. Something has called you here today. Maybe you know a bit about it, or you have a deep sense that this is where your soul needs to be, what you need to hear. Frances is going to say a little bit about her journey with constellations, which I know has been very deep and very healing for her. I'm also going to share mine, which goes back now almost 10 years. It's really helped me so much to recover from my own experience of having an eating disorder. Then I'm also going to give a bit of a synopsis about something called internal family systems, which is a method of psychotherapy which is very much like constellations. It works on the parts inside ourselves, really our internal family. And I'm very curious to see how that internal family often mirrors very much the way in which we show up in families, either our nuclear family, our blood family, or the way that we show up in groups, and how somehow we can bring more connection, more flow, when we can bring awareness both to the inside and the outside. I'm then going to allow Fran's going to step in and help me by giving a little bit of a history of constellations. Where did constellations start? What part of the world? How have they been used? How far back do they date? And how are they evolving now to become such an extremely important part of the way that we're learning to heal ourselves this time? I'm then going to guide us in an internal family systems meditation to find out what parts are in us right now, this moment, how they show up for us, how they help us or how they hinder us, what they're carrying, what they're holding, what messages they have for us. Then we're going to have a bit of a question and answer session to see if anyone wants to chip in and share what's alive for them, what their curiosity is. Something about our own healing journeys maybe, something about how family constellations might be able to help us. We're going to say a bit about the day retreat that we're going to be running, that you're also warmly invited to join. To say how it might be structured, what it might look like. And then Fran's going to end in a beautiful meditation that will help wrap up the day so that we feel we're going out into the world again with a feeling of being reassured, being renewed, perhaps being inspired. So first I'm going to introduce myself. My name's Naomi, and I'm a coach and therapist. I specialise in working with those, mainly with eating disorders, also with some other types of addiction. My interest is in using movement and dance in group therapy to find more cohesion. And as I said before, internal family systems is such a powerful tool for me to use both one-to-one as well as in a group way. I'm going to be saying more about that later and about the way that this will come into the day that we're running in February. Internal family systems really has shown me how different parts of us can become very isolated, very burdened, and the result is that we feel less connected within a group. And I've learned that movement and a safely held group experience can really bring about more flow and more connection. Now I'm going to introduce Francis Goodall, who's going to say a little bit more about herself and where she comes to today.
Thank you, Naomi. Thank you for that wonderful introduction to today's call. I've been specialising in helping people to overcome chronic illness for the last 10 years, and many of you may know that if you've come through my work. And I had chronic illness in my early 20s, chronic fatigue syndrome that left me housebound and bedbound at times. And I went on a deep journey of exploration in terms of helping myself to heal. And then I've spent the last 10 years coaching and supporting others to heal with a variety of different modalities to support me in my work. And in the last few years, I became really fascinated by constellations and working with ancestral healing and deeper patterns, because I realised that I'd done so much work on my own present life and issues with my present life, that when these kind of big blocks kept showing up in my body, I started to feel that they weren't mine anymore. And actually, by doing some inner inquiry and some deeper work, I started to trace ancestral lines back and issues back through ancestral lines, and got really fascinated in terms of my own personal inquiry and experience. And then I'm going to talk more about this later, actually, I've just realised. But just to introduce really me that Constellations has now become a passion of mine. And I really love working with women particularly. I also do work with men, but I run Women's Wellness Circle as well, and we run online programs and retreats for women, and Constellations is becoming a passion within all of my work as well. So I'll hand back to you now to do a sort of deeper exploration of your own experiences with Constellations, with IFS, and your own healing experiences.
Thanks so much, Fran. I must say that working with Fran has been such a gift over the last time. Let me just reflect back on my journey with Constellations. My first constellation was back in 2009, and at the time I was doing a great deal of Zen meditation. I knew that my life was full of suffering. I had that awareness, and I knew that I wanted to heal from that suffering, but I really didn't know how to do it. I was very inspired by some Buddhists that I'd met, so I spent great deals of time sitting in silence, sitting in monasteries, sometimes not eating, often not talking to people. Really, really with my suffering, really alive to my suffering, and yet it really wasn't shifting. I needed it to be more quick. I was an impatient person, and I started to feel that there was something more that I needed to be doing. And I was very, very fortunate to be inspired to go and join a constellation down in London, which was very powerful. It used shamanic practices as well as song, and there was a great buzz about it, a real excitement. But I actually was very, very closed at the time, very almost frozen in my body. I couldn't really get a sense of how I was connected to life. And actually now I know that I was very, very unwell with an eating disorder. My weight was fluctuating wildly, so I would never be very overweight or very underweight, but it was enough to disturb my body to the extent that I wasn't menstruating. I felt all over the place, and there was just a great deal of me trying to control my life experience, and that really showed up in the way that I was using food, really, to put plaster on some of the things that distress me about life, and then punishing myself by restricting my food intake to try and get perfect. So through all this, I really was quite isolated, didn't have the kinds of experiences that I wanted to, and didn't feel that I was intimately connected with my world, and really did just resist that flow of love that we know can be available to us if we can open ourselves to it. So that's how I came into Constellations, from this sort of frozen place. And really my first constellation, though I was terrified, was extremely deep and powerful for me, almost despite myself, almost despite the resistance that I had to being helped. And it showed my nuclear family the way that I knew them to be. Everybody that represented people in my family system, just my small nuclear family, my sister and my parents, was standing in the way that exactly reflected how my family showed up. So, for instance, my mother was standing behind my dad, which very much reflected the way I feel she often had been sort of shut out from him, his back to her. My sister off to one side, kind of looking in a different direction, the way it feels that she often was somehow facing out of the family. And I really did get a sense that, gosh, maybe the sense of fragmentation I had inside my being wasn't just a personal, private experience. Maybe there was a way in which I was somehow reflecting through my body, through my psyche, something that was true inside my family system, that really I was just a product of my family. And though this was very painful to see, it also did help me to see that I was really very much over-responsible for my experience of life, that really we are only co-creators of this life. Really that first constellation motivated me to start to seek help. So I didn't have another constellation for another 6 years, and during that time I really got busy. I did a lot of family tree work to see how some of these patterns of distress and stuckness in my family could perhaps be repeating patterns, something that I really got a sense of, getting a sense of the wider whole of my family, the messages that have been passed down from generations of hard work and lack of connection. I also, from my constellation, had really got a taste of my addiction. An aunt had been introduced into my constellation, represented by someone else in the group, and really this person intuitively had reported that they just wanted to eat chocolate and keep eating chocolate. And this was an unusual piece of information to see in my constellation, but actually it gave me real insight into this being my experience too. And that maybe this wasn't something that was just about me being a greedy failure. Maybe this was something that was like a kind of illness or repeating negative pattern that was being passed down somehow despite myself. So that really motivated me to get help around my food in a recovery program, and really got so much relief and so much fellowship that way. And I also came into therapy, and being in full-time therapy and still being in full-time therapy has been such a support and such an anchor for me. And really I feel like the constellation was like the spark that lit all that transformation, and just by showing me, you know what, something's wrong. It's not all your fault. There are things that you can do to help those unseen, those hidden, those secretive, forgotten pockets of experience that are not just in you, in your body, but are reflected on a wider plane and also back in time. So then fast forward to 2015, I really started to feel that my life was really flourishing, but I kept going on a lot of internet dating dates, and I felt that I couldn't understand why I couldn't bring about an experience of intimacy in my own love life. And I did so much therapy, I did so much writing, so much body work, training as a therapist, just seeking and feeling myself flourishing, not understanding why there was still this block. And I thought, I'm going to do another constellation. It's such a rich experience, and I just know that there are answers. There's wisdom out there that I don't have access to. And really, it was very transformational for me, this second constellation. It showed me something that really I already knew about the lack of intimacy in my parents' marriage, but it didn't tell me how they had been feeling. It really took other people to represent my parents and to really feel intuitively into what had happened for them back then, to understand more and to have compassion for them and to really let go and to not have their experience be something that I had to repeat. And then, with the help of IFS, internal family systems, I realized that a part of me had been holding intimacy at bay, not wanting to repeat negative patterns in my own experience. And literally a month later, I fell very deeply in love. I'm now engaged to be married, and I mean, I'm not saying constellations are a fairy story like this, but they have really catalyzed my experience of joy and growth in many areas. So now, 2016, the summer, I actually went with my new fiancé, with my man, and we did an intensive constellation training, and we learned more about the ways that we can use constellations, not just in a family way, but also to look at different aspects of our experience. For instance, we can name parts of ourselves, things like duty, creativity, family, freedom, and just allow other people to hold these energies for us and to arrange themselves accordingly in a sort of constellation that gives us like a snapshot of where we are in our lives, what might be holding us back, what might be feeling free, and always what I've learned in both constellations training, IFS training, and also the work that I've done in therapy and groups, we're always looking for more cohesion. The agenda, if you like, is to find a way in which separate parts of a group can soften into more of a group experience, more of a cohesive, cooperative group, a bit like perhaps a starling cloud. Everyone's sensing each other, everyone working together, and really there can be a very, very beautiful flowing result from that. It's definitely brought more joy to my physical body, more release, more freedom, and more perspective, more of a sense of understanding where I fit in this precious world, how what I do affects other people, what they do affects me. And I can work with that knowledge to my advantage so that I'm really flowing with that recognition of my place in this beautiful world. So I'm going to leave it there in terms of my constellation history. I'm going to pass you back over to Fran now so that she can say a bit more about how constellations have helped her in her own healing journey. Fran?
Hi, yeah, I'm here. So I've also noticed a few people have joined us. So if you do want to write in your name and where you're calling from, it would just be interesting to know who's live on the call with us. But yeah, in terms of my personal journey with constellations, so I've done a lot of inner work on myself, years of therapy, years of emotional freedom technique, different kind of things, and also with my clients as well in my work. And I just recognised that in myself and in my clients, I felt that sometimes there was a block that really went much deeper than the individual, that it was really kind of a family issue that the individual had taken on. So in terms of and also for me and my experience, that there was, I'd done loads of personal work on myself, but there were still some kind of blockages in my system. I was still getting pretty devastating premenstrual symptoms, even though I was physically generally really well. So to actually start to do some deeper work with that, I initially on my own would do some inquiry, I think I was mentioning briefly earlier, and come to the realization that I was holding emotions from certain ancestors, and then I'd be doing EFT to help myself release the emotions and what I was holding in my system, and it would just bring about a sense of relief, and like I'd released a layer of what I was holding in my deeper being. And then that sparked my curiosity and my fascination with constellations, and led to me doing various different kinds of training in constellations and getting a supervisor who works with constellations with EFT. And so over the last 4 or 5 years, I've been really kind of immersing myself in constellations whenever I can, and started a little group who meet at my house and practice together. And I've just found it to be really, really helpful. So all my personal constellations, I feel, have really helped me to unravel or resolve some particular issue, or just kind of move forward, create some more space around whatever it is, and it's just been really powerful. And then I've started to use it in my work a little bit as well, and I've also found that it can kind of open doorways and provide some relief in the system that can help be one of the layers that helps with the physical healing as well, or just kind of a deeper understanding of what's going on, which a deeper awareness of what's really going on, which then can help to create the shifts. So yeah, I'm just still really passionate and inspired by constellations. More recently, I've did some deeper work a weekend with Stefan Hausner, who specialises in using constellations to help heal chronic illness. He's written a book called Even If It Cost My Life, and about how often a person with an illness is representing some an issue in the family that's not been dealt with, or someone in the family that belongs that hasn't been given its right place. So yeah, I'm just deeply fascinated about constellations. I feel like it's been of so much benefit to me personally to start to widen the field of where I work. Even only yesterday, actually, I had a session with my EFT practitioner who does constellations as well, and we got to a deeper ancestral issue that my womb was carrying from someone female in my family system, and I just feel like even from that, there's just been another layer of release in my system. So it's an ongoing journey, I think, to really kind of unravel and unlock these different pieces that can be impacting our being. But I really recommend you do that and explore this kind of way of working, because I think it's really powerful. And for some people, it's like one of the missing link. It's like sometimes say to heal a chronic illness or to heal a addictive issue, or whatever the issue is, there's still different keys there's different locks we have to open, and I think for some people that this is kind of a key that's really can be important for a layer of the healing, or even just a layer to deeper levels of wholeness and happiness. So yeah. So I think that's enough about my personal story and my work with constellations, but I'm passionate about it and still wanting to learn more. I'm planning on doing a longer training with Stefan Hausner this year, because working with chronic illness is my area of expertise, and wanting to develop my skills in that area and to understand more about the perhaps bigger systemic links to healing chronic illness. So I'll pass it back to you now. Do you want to talk a little bit about IFS, and then I'll do the bit about constellations and a little bit more about that? Is that what we can do?
Sure, thanks, Sam. So I'm going to talk a little bit about internal family systems, which really has given me more of an expansive experience of life. It's given me a way of understanding why I sometimes behave the way I behave, when parts of me just throw up my hands and say, goodness, why are you doing that? There's much more patience and compassion for myself nowadays, and that's because of my first exploration into internal family systems personally with my own therapist, and then more latterly with quite an in-depth training in this method of psychotherapy. So internal family systems really does come from the philosophy that every single part of our being is a friend, even though it may sometimes feel completely the opposite. It might be that we have a very, very critical part of ourselves that just gives us hell for the way that we show up. You know, maybe we've had that extra biscuit to eat, or we haven't had enough exercise, or maybe we have been slow to pay our bills, we've got a fine, and maybe we're not thriving in our work the way we should be, or we've been mean to somebody that we love. That there can be parts of our beings that really can give us hell. And I think, previous to learning about internal family systems, I just used to feel that sometimes I was my worst enemy. Really, I'd have a bad day, and I really did get the sense that, there have been a few bad things that happened to me, but the worst thing about my day has been the way that I've been speaking to myself. I would not speak to my worst enemy on a day like that. I would give them compassion. I would give them a hot water bottle and tell them to put their feet up. I wouldn't be drilling into them and telling them that they needed to be better. So what IFS has really done is to help me to explore the parts of myself that get really quite worked up sometimes. And I used to be under the illusion that I had full awareness of my own experience. I accepted that there were parts of my subconscious that would be bubbling under the surface, and I wouldn't really know what was happening there, and some of that would come out in dreams. But I just sort of let go and thought, well, I'll never know about that stuff. There's no point analysing it. So instead I would analyse my own thought and felt experience to the nth degree, and yet I still had this enormous inner criticism, and really very, very intellectual parts of myself couldn't access any healing in those areas. I just knew that I was quite mean to myself. What IFS did for me initially was to really start to acknowledge different extreme parts of myself. I could either get to know those parts of me through realizing that I had been behaving a certain way. Maybe those parts drove a certain behavior, like driving too quickly, or eating unhealthily, or being very late, or being very angry. And that's how I knew that those parts were active in me. Or maybe I could bring more attention to my physical experience and realize that I was very, very tense, or I was giving myself a headache from rounding over in some kind of fearful posture of concentration. Or lots of different ways in which parts of me were literally hijacking my own experience of life and sort of taking over the steering wheel, and often not doing a very good job of being in the driver's seat. What internal family systems therapy and also some journaling techniques that I have learned over the years has done for me is to begin to relate to parts of me that I previously thought were me. I thought they were the whole story. And actually, if I can bring some openness and curiosity, and perhaps even a little bit of compassion to parts of me that feel that they have to take the steering wheel and do a lot of hard work running the show for me, and start to question them, who are you? Where did you come from? Where do you dwell in my body? What's your concern if you just give me a little bit of space, a bit of relaxation time? If you just quieten down a little bit, actually, I can get to know you better. I can get to know what your concerns are for me, why you feel the need to take over my experience and drive me in these particular ways, or why you feel the need to isolate me from other people, or have me be distracted doing something when I'd had the plan to do something else. Really, whatever the behavior was, just starting to bring a question to it. And for me, because I work very well with journaling as a therapeutic tool, I often didn't really get the answers just by asking myself, or even by being questioned by my IFS therapist. Often I really got the answers through writing out the question on a piece of paper. And then the part would sort of come forth, It would often express a worry that I was going to get fat if I didn't go to the gym every hour, or that I would, and then if I didn't get looking a certain way, that I wouldn't be loved by other people, or that other prettier women would get all the love. And, just to see some of the beliefs that I'd picked up over the years, or that I'd picked up from other people in my life, started to help me see that this part wasn't just being mean. It really was terrified that I wasn't going to be okay, and it was really, really looking out for me, even to the extent that it would make me do things that sometimes felt really unloving. So to learn about the loving motivations behind virtually every part of my system was a complete revelation, and I could feel myself start to relax and start to blossom. And as I could let more what we call self-energy into my system, which is basically a combination of confidence and calm and curiosity and compassion and lots of other things, that clarity, all the things that begin with C, in fact, in a sort of punchy way, I could actually start to allow some of these really hard-working parts to just sometimes take a bit of a break, just to relax back a little bit and to see that actually I'm an adult. I'm a fully functioning adult. I'm doing things okay. I might make mistakes sometimes, but they don't need to grip the steering wheel quite so tightly. And I could actually allow those parts to transform into parts that are actually quite functional. I call them my unburdened managers. They're actually doing a job that they love to do. A lot of them have great skills. A lot of the parts of my internal family have really great management skills. And they just need to be able to take a rest sometimes and to know who the boss is. And, the boss really is this self-energy, this compassion, this knowing it's going to be okay, this deep trust, and this feeling of being resourced no matter what's happening circumstantially in my life. There is this source, there is this kind of power center in me where I can access self-energy. And sometimes, yes, I do need to take time out. I do need to meditate in order to feel connected to that. My parts can then relax back a little bit. Internal family systems was really created by a man called Richard Schwartz about 35 years ago in America. It still hasn't actually taken off very, very much in this country. We're lagging behind, perhaps. There are some training courses now, but it's still quite an anomaly. So it's a really a new way of people understanding the psyche. And many different types of psychotherapy do actually talk about subpersonalities, but perhaps not to the depth that IFS does, not in the way of understanding that not only do we have these parts, but these parts almost have their own thinking minds, and they have access to information about us that we don't even know. They have memories about us, about things that happened to us that hurt us. There are other parts of us that are very tender, that those managers are safeguarding, that they feel that through their behavior they are actually managing to protect us from being overwhelmed or flooded by the emotions that younger, more tender parts of us still hold. And those tender parts stuck back in a time, in a place that is separate from us now. And I think that the hope that I hold out to the people I work with, and also the hope that I have deep in my soul now, is that those hurt parts can be retrieved. They can be taken from where they are feeling stuck and where they're feeling in shame or despair or fear, where there wasn't somebody around at the time to comfort or support them. And they can be enveloped into the experience that we have in our minds, in our bodies right now. And they can see that there is an adult on the scene, and that adult is a loving one, and that adult is us. And then when our protectors, our managers, can see that we have got this, we are taking care of our younger parts, then they can cease to work quite so hard, and then we can start to have more of a nourishing and fulfilling experience of our own lives, not so much burdened by some of the behaviours that can drive us round the bend, and also our loved ones sometimes. I'm speaking for myself. That's internal family systems, briefly. And maybe in a little bit I'm going to hand you over to Fran, but first I'm just going to say that the day retreat that we are running is going to show us and also give us all an experience of how we can have an experience of our internal family with the help of people in a group, so that people in the group can basically hold the energies of different parts of our own sub-personality, and allow those parts to be seen, be acknowledged, be shown our gratitude for all the hard, tireless work that they do for us, often just soldiering on in isolation through adversity, and really be given a sense of inclusion in the system. And yeah, often I find the most powerful way to do this, as well as within my own being through writing, can be to do it in a group. And we're going to really have an experience of that in the retreat we're holding. But meanwhile, I'm going to pass you over to Fran, and she's going to say a little bit about family constellations, because really, if IFS, internal family systems, is the micro, shows us the internal family we have, then family constellations mirrors that with the way in which we ourselves are a part, or a sub-personality really, in a larger group. So Fran, I'm going to pass you over, and maybe if you could, just enlighten us about the history of constellations and where it's come from.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, so I just want to say a quick hello to Paula and Amy that are here, that have spoken in the chat box. So if anyone else wants to say where you're from and your name, it'd be great to know who's here today. So just to mention that family constellation originated from a man called Bert Hellinger, who spent some time in South Africa with Zulus. And he witnessed a lot of honouring of the ancestors, and he kind of, through that experience, recognised how we'd kind of lost touch with the importance of our ancestors. So that's kind of where the roots of constellations developed, and he started working with groups, and part of the process is that when someone has an issue, brings an issue, then he would choose, the issue holder would choose members of a group to represent different family members that might be involved in this issue, and then facilitate a shift in the system that allows more love to flow through the system and some resolution. So some of the kind of underlying principles behind family constellations are that things like everyone has a right to belong in their family. So, for instance, if there's been, say, a miscarriage or a stillborn, or someone's died young, that person needs to be honoured. That person needs to be grieved, and that needs to, in order for sort of resolution to happen, that needs to happen. If it doesn't happen, then the kind of pain of that experience can be passed down through a family system. And sometimes it's thought, when someone, say, develops some kind of mysterious chronic illness out of the blue, that actually they can be representing something in the family system that's not being seen fully. And actually, almost through their illness, they're kind of having a kind of deep empathy connection with that, but without realising it. And actually, sometimes building out that bigger container for what can be going on can help to bring awareness, and then help the flow of love, and help the emotions that need to be released around that to actually just come through the system. Another kind of operating kind of order or like principle behind it is that there is a hierarchy in terms of birth order. So those that are born first are kind of more important in a way. That sounds strange to say more important, but there's a kind of hierarchy that those that come first, that it matters. The order in which birth happens matters. So the order in terms of in a family system, so for instance, an older sibling, they are kind of above in a way and send love to a younger sibling, that sort of thing, and that order is important, and that parents give and children receive. So there's a flow of love from grandparents to parents to children, and that when that kind of love is reversed, or there's some kind of that's a sign that there's a dysfunction in that family system. So it's important there's a flow of love, and that flow of love can be blocked by some of the kind of traumas that I mentioned earlier. So a family constellation will really reveal what's maybe not been dealt with, and can help bring about resolution. And then another principle is the male takes up the first position in the family, but he acts in service of the female. So some other examples of issues that can show up in family systems, I mentioned kind of stillborns, but there's also things like adoptions that maybe, if someone's, say, given up for children, they're not talked about anymore, that's important to really honour that, and it's also important that a child honours his real birth parents as well as his adoptive parents, but actually that in terms of his birth parents are important, so really honour that. And things like when previous relationships or important relationships are not honoured, that can be one of the things that can show up as well. And then obviously things like big traumas, like war traumas and that kind of thing. I mean, through my own work, I realised that because my great-grandparents were killed in the Holocaust, that was a massive thing in my family system, and the ripples of that were huge and weren't being fully acknowledged, and that was one of the big pieces of healing that I did in my family constellation work, is to kind of bring awareness to that and healing of that. Stephen Housen says that when one person can open their heart to everything that belongs in a family system, healing can happen. So yeah, it's a really powerful system, and I invite you to explore it more. We're going to do a little mini practice of it at the end, and I'm just going to hand over to Naomi in a moment to do a little mini IFS practice as well. And if you've got any questions coming up or comments coming up, then feel free to write them in the chat box or the Q&A box. And yeah, if there's anything else you want to add, Nao, feel free to chip in as well.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks so much, Fan. Yeah, I just I think, constellations, I'm not really sure whether I can ever really go back to doing group therapy, I suppose, the way that I used to do it before I knew about the power of constellations. There really is something extremely powerful in literally just letting other people hold and carry things that one's own family system hold, and to have the trust to allow people to be there in service of us, and being intuitive about what comes up. It can be quite mysterious, some of the things that those people could not possibly have known, secrets or knowledge of injuries or feelings of disconnect or connection, that really when the issue holder is questioned, it becomes something actually, that I think I did know that about my family, or oh wow, maybe I have more to learn. There's a sense of these things being in the field. In constellations we call it the field. It's like the knowing field, and I sometimes think of it as love, really, love or love in action. And it really does come together when one or more people meet and have the sincere desire to be of service to one another and to allow an unfolding healing to occur. So I think probably what would be good is to have a little time out now. I've been doing a lot of talking, and maybe we can just have a moment of meditation, and in this meditation maybe get an experience of our own inner family through some of the ways that we view our internal experience through internal family systems. So I'm going to invite you to make sure that you're in a comfortable position. You might want to lie back, your head propped up, maybe your knees up, any way that's comfortable for you. Or you might want to sit up with a nice gentle upright spine. If you're lucky like me, then you have the sun shining right into the room right now and right onto your face. If not, just take in the knowledge of love and connection. If you might not feel it right in yourself right now, just know that it is there. It's available to us all. Parts of us may not find it easy to open and receive, so I'm going to go inside and take a little look, feel into what's happening in our own selves. So maybe just start by taking in a deep, cleansing breath. into the lungs and gently out. And just allow that breath to travel all the way down, beyond the diaphragm, down deep into the pelvic bowl. And notice the ripple effect of that breath. Where is it highlighting that there is tension? It could be that there's tension around the little muscles in the eyes or in the neck, maybe in the jaw. No need to change anything. Just take in another deep, cleansing breath. Settle into yourself. Settle back into your heart. Then I'm going to invite you to just bring a gentle focus on your heart. How does it feel? How does it feel to you in this moment? Does it feel tough? Or does it feel tender? Does it feel flowing? Or does it feel somehow congested? Is there an openness around your heart? Or do you sense a guardedness? However your heart feels, just let it be okay. This meditation is not about trying to change anything. It's just about bringing that curious clarity into our inner world. I'm going to invite you to just take in one more deep, cleansing breath to your heart this time. Allowing that breath to circle around your heart, just gently noticing what parts are there. And maybe just gently inquire, what might your parts or part need from you right now? Just to give you a little bit of space. Maybe you're feeling distracted with a problem, or there are parts that are very preoccupied and doing a lot of thinking for you. Maybe just acknowledge those parts. Acknowledge any part of you that feels tense in your body, that you sense is defended against the world, maybe armoring up a little. Just acknowledge that part too. And really thank it. Even if there may be other parts that say, no, I don't want to thank it. I wish it would F off and let me be at peace. Just know somehow deep in your heart that all our parts are there for a reason. They're there to protect us. Just take a leap of faith and just thank whatever part you find. And just invite that part again just to relax back a little bit. Maybe if it's showing up for you 100%, maybe you can just suggest it can just show up for you maybe 75%. It doesn't have to do all the work alone, all by itself, all the time. Just acknowledge that it's carrying a lot. That it's often alone, and that it may have been doing this very, very burdensome work, perhaps even for a long while. curiosity, maybe ask it, how long have you been doing this job? When did you start to bring tension to this place? When did you start to bring these thoughts round and round to my mind? What would it take for you to just relax a little? Just give me a little bit of space so I can get to know you better. Get to know more about the job that you're doing. Get so I can thank you. And maybe just let the part know that there may be a way in which it doesn't have to work quite so hard. That you know there are parts of you that might need your help. That in due course you can help those parts, and then maybe this one won't have to work so hard when it sees that. It sees that you're there. And if it feels right for you, I might just invite you to just let the part know how old you are. You might be a bit surprised. Maybe it thinks it's the responsible one, but just let it know. You have a massive capacity. You are deeply connected with source energy. You are unlimited. That part can afford to relax. And maybe with one more deep cleansing breath, just let it know that it may be carrying something that doesn't belong to it. Maybe energy from someone else, maybe this lifetime, maybe even not this lifetime, maybe carrying some kind of legacy burden, laboring under false ideas or working very hard. And that if that's the case, maybe there's a way it doesn't need to do that so much. You can look around and see that there is actually a lot of potential for transformation here. A lot of potential for relaxation. Also reassure the part that it still belongs in your system no matter what job it's doing. That you care about it. Merely wanting to highlight the opportunity to release heaviness, burden, so that the part can come into more of a connection with you. And just one final deep breath in and out now. Maybe that there's a feeling of tenderness in your heart now, and just invite the parts that protect your heart to come back. They've been doing such a good job, and they can do that job in a relaxed way. You are safe. And come out a little bit further to the periphery of your body now, allowing any tension to just be acknowledged and invited to soften if it can. And then just open your eyes if they've been closed, and maybe wriggle your fingers and look around the room. Thank your parts one last time. Maybe let them know that if they have anything else to say, that you can set aside a few minutes later and just go inside again, maybe meditate or put pen to paper and write down anything that came up for you in this meditation. I'm going to just draw it to a close now, and I'm going to invite Fran to say a little bit about anything that came up for her in that meditation. Also, maybe something about the offering that we have, this day retreat in Sheffield, February the 18th, and have time for a very small demo and a meditation, but we'll just see what questions and answers there are. Fran, have you got access to the questions and answers?
Sure, yeah, I have. So feel free if you want to write in the Q&A box any questions you've got, any experiences you've just had in that little meditation, or just from listening to us both today. So please feel free to write in there, particularly Amy and Paula and anyone else that might be present. It looks like there's a few more online as well. But yeah, thank you, Naya. That was really beautifully led, and I just, really that kind of deep honouring of all of the parts of us and the wisdom they have and the role that they play and the power of meeting them and how that can help things to soften and change and also just to reflect back in terms of knowing you for, I don't know, the last 10 years or whatever, it's clear that IFS has helped you really deeply blossom and flourish as a person. So, and it's great to see you offering it to others as well in this beautiful way. So thank you. That was wonderful. Really wonderful. We've got a day retreat coming up on the 18th of February. So Naomi and I worked together for 5 days on the retreat, our latest retreat in the Lake District last November, offering constellations and IFS-based or kind of family constellations to support women who came with various kind of health issues and that kind of thing. And most women who came and were part of those constellations had really deeply profound and powerful experiences that actually had physical health benefits afterwards, emotional health benefits afterwards. So, and it really helped to provide some kind of deep shift and movement in the system that enabled more love to flow, more health, more energy, and that kind of thing. So it's really, really powerful. So on this day retreat, everyone who comes will have the opportunity to be have a constellation themselves. So to work with an issue, either in a kind of IFS style way where you would be getting people in the group to represent different inner parts, or in a family constellation way where you'd get people in the group to represent different family members. So both of those are possible. So it depends really kind of what you come with and what you want to work with as well. But yeah, it'll be a deeply safe and held container that we will create. Although men were welcome to join in this call today, the day itself is just for women this time. We might offer mixed groups in the future, but Naomi and I particularly also like working with women's groups, so that's the format of this one. If you've got any questions about that, any questions about family constellations or IFS in general, feel free to just send us an email, or of course if you want to write it in the Q&A now, if you're online now. Is anything coming through? Let's have a look. Okay, so Paula says, thank you both so much for such a beautiful experience. My parts feel honoured. Thank you, Paula. That's lovely, and that's a key part of it, I would say, is that kind of honouring. I mean, this is for both IFS and for family constellations, that honouring of all parts of us, that honouring of all parts of the family system, and that everything has a right to belong and it has its place in the whole scheme of things. And with inner parts, it's just about kind of supporting them in a way, I would say, that helps them become more a part of a kind of cohesive whole system of who we are, that they're kind of, and then with outer parts and the kind of family constellation level, helping to create more love and flow in the whole system and an inclusion of everything that belongs. So we will in a moment finish with a brief closing meditation, which I will lead you through as well. But if you've got any final comments or questions, feel free to write them in Q&A, or if you've called in, you can press star 2 to raise your hand as well. So Naya, any final thoughts you want to say, or shall we move on to a meditation in a moment? Or
Oh, I'm so glad that we'll be having a meditation with you, Fran. I think, that's the treat that I've been looking forward to, just to have a meditation with you. But now I think that I'm done. I agree that working with women only is something that we both really very much enjoy. But this is work that women and men can do as well. We are going to be offering more opportunities, and we both love working in this way, and we love working together. So watch this space, really. This is definitely inspiring us to the extent that we are making it an increasing part of both of our lives, working in groups in this way, using what we call phenomenology, which is this knowing field beyond what either of us can possibly know. It really sort of turns on its head the idea that the therapist is the expert, that she or he knows what is wrong with the other person, and really it's an experience of group knowing and group sharing and group healing. I do believe that we do still need somebody that is or more than one person that's very experienced in holding group space. But really it's an adventure to see what people bring and what the family system has to reveal. And the themes are very common, that parts of the system need to be acknowledged. Sometimes it can be very painful to see how stuck or hurting different parts or the group in general is. And I think there's that balance between not running away from seeing that pain and try and rush for a solution because of an uneasiness with that pain, but also realizing that there is a great deal of capacity to create flow, not sometime in the future, but today, now, that we can be creative and intuitive in finding resources that are at our fingertips right now. And as Fran said earlier, it only takes one person to open their heart to every part in the system, whether that's our own internal family system or our family system. And the groups that we show up in life, it only takes one person to have the courage to step into that space of the heart and allow ourselves to receive the support of everybody around us in our own healing journeys. It really is of benefit to everybody. It really, really does ripple out to the greater whole. So, I'm so excited that you're here, and that if you're listening back later as well, welcome. And we hope that you can join us, if not in this retreat that we've got coming up on February the 18th, if not then watch this space, because, we're bringing this work in with a lot of joy.
Yeah, thanks so much, Naomi. That's beautiful. So everyone, just take a moment now, whether you're listening to this live or in the recording, just take a moment to pause and to come into your body. So bring your awareness up from the soles of your feet and up through the whole of your body. Just taking a moment to deeply inhabit your body with your awareness. And perhaps have a gentle smile at your lips as you inhabit each part of your body, including your feet and toes and ankles, lower legs, knees, thighs, up through your pelvis, your lower torso, your lower belly, lower back, middle of your back, diaphragm area, upper back, your chest, down from your shoulders, down your upper arms, through your elbows, all the way down to your hands and fingers and fingertips, inhabiting your body with your awareness fully, up through your neck and throat, into your jaw. Maybe open and close your mouth a couple of times to really invite your jaw to relax and soften. Maybe yawn. And just fill your whole head and face with your awareness. Gentle smile at your lips. And really settle your awareness now into your heart area. If you want to help you to do that, you can put one hand over your heart. And just take a moment to open your heart to all parts of yourself, all your inner parts, to hold that bigger container of compassion and love and acceptance. And then take a moment to imagine your ancestors, to take a moment to, if you have any siblings, you can be aware of their presence, and your parents, maybe behind you, or just seeing where they show up in your awareness when you think of them. Your grandparents. And just keeping that heartfelt, heart-open awareness, just extending compassion and acceptance to your family system. And even if there's pain that arises in your system, maybe parts of you that don't want to send compassion, or whatever emerges in you, sending compassion to your inner parts that emerge, while also holding the whole. Just opening your heart to it, Maybe taking a moment to open your heart to anything in your family system that belongs, that maybe hasn't been acknowledged fully, whether it's some past trauma, whether it's a family member that died young, or whatever it could be. Just taking a moment to open your heart and include that person or that situation in your heart. And open your heart to receive the love that does flow through the system. So maybe if there's a particular ancestor that you feel is a big support for you and is older than you, open your heart to receive the love from them, to receive that support. And know that you can't help but be connected to your family system. And if there is a lot of dysfunction, be compassionate with your inner parts that come up as a result of this exercise. And then almost imagine yourself bowing to your family and bowing to the pain and the fate of different family members. But also a sense of maybe letting go of any burden that you've been holding for the family. Sort of giving it up, maybe putting it back where it belongs. It's not yours to carry. You can see it with compassion. You can include it as belonging, and you can also let it go and not hold on to that burden. And then coming back to an awareness of your own body and just noticing how you're feeling emotionally, and if there's any parts of you that have emerged from this little practice, then maybe just putting your hand over this part of the body and just bringing some holding and some compassion to whatever is in you right now. With your hands just gently holding, not trying to change it or fix it or make it all okay, but just being with, being present with an invitation, with a gentle invitation maybe for softness and for softening and letting go, but without trying to force anything, just a gentle invitation is there with your hand, for that part to become part more of the whole of yourself. Maybe to feel the love in your heart, to feel the holding. And I'm just aware we're come to the end of time now, so just closing that now by, again, bringing your awareness through the whole of your body, and knowing that you can always, of course, carry on with this as well if you'd like to. And just bringing awareness to the whole of your body, moving your feet and your toes and your fingers, and maybe having a little stretch and smile. Thank you so much, everyone, for being with us today, and thank you for those of you who listen to the recording as well. Wishing you all well.
Thank you so much, Fran. It's been lovely to be in conversation with you in this way, and just thank you to all of you. I hope that you've heard our passion, and that that if it will be of benefit to you, that you will take it into your heart as well as we have. Mm-hmm. Many thanks and much love.
Yeah, much love. Thank you. Wishing you well.